there, YouTubers, this is Superman G, come back at you one more again. And in this video, I am going to talk about processors. Now, I have made a video about trying to know the difference between the Intel motherboard and AMD motherboard. This time I'm going to talk about the generation of processors. If you've been on YouTube and you've watched some of these content creators who build PCs, you've probably seen how they can look at a chip, or they can just say, you know, this is a, fifth generation or fourth generation or third generation processor just by looking at it. And you're like, well, how do they know that? How do they know what generation it is just by, reading whatever is on it? And this is something that actually puzzled me at times. And the thing is that I did my own research to figure out how to tell the difference. And when you find out, you're going to be like, wow, it's that simple? So I'm going to cut right to it. I'm going to pull up a page from Newegg full of processors. Nothing but AMD and Intel processors. Now, these processors are kind of expensive for those who were wondering. Some of these are actually decent. This i5 is decent. But if you want to tell what generation it is, and the reason why I want to show this is because on Newegg, as of right now, I don't have the page, but they are selling lower end generation chips for exorbitant prices. I'm talking about prices like in the 200s. They're not even brand new. These are used processors. And I'm really not understanding why they're doing this. I'm sure it's price gouging. But to me, I find it very disconcerting, because if you have legit customers out there wanting to get new processors, but they don't want to pay the price, they have no idea that they're getting an older processor for the price that they can pay for a newer processor, because they don't know the generation. So that's what this video is more geared towards. So I want to help the consumer out in showing them how to determine what generation a processor is, so you can get a more modern processor for a decent price and not get a used older generation processor. So if you look at the page here showing these processors, now Intel is a little more open about showing you what generation a processor is. Like this here is a 10th generation, this Core i7. This Core i9 is also a 10th generation. This Core i7, if I click on it, you'll see on the box it says the 9th gen. Now you're probably wondering, well, what if it doesn't have any writing on it to tell you what generation it is, such as the Ryzen processors? Ryzen processors don't have the same open-mindedness in letting you know what generation the processor is. So in any case, you usually have to look at the description of it, or you have to go research it online. But I'm going to show you. If you look at these numbers, this particular number right here, this number right here is 107. As soon as my page stops loading, this 10700K shows you what generation processor is. Some you don't even have to look at this to tell what it is. But for reference point, if you just looked at this picture here, so if someone just had there's right in here. So if someone didn't have this box and they were selling this processor, just the processor alone, showing you just the processor without this box, telling you what generation it is, and they had this description showing you that it's an Intel Core i7 10700K, just from this number right here, you can tell what generation it is. In this case, this is a 10th generation processor. The same goes for this processor over here, this Intel Core i9. When you see, now that you see the 9900K, you know that the numbers tell you it is a 9th generation chip. So even if you click on it, you'll see here 9th generation right there. Shows you right there it's 9th generation. So just by looking at those numbers tells you what generation it is. Now AMD doesn't show you on the box. However, AMD does tell you what generation it is, once again by these numbers. The AMD Ryzen 5 2600 here tells you this is a 2nd generation chip. And if you click on it, it'll tell you in the description 2nd generation Ryzen. So these numbers match up. 2600 second generation. So any chip or processor that you see when you go to Newegg or Amazon or wherever you go to get your products from, if you see these numbers, then you know what generation the processor is. So when you get a processor that says 5600, 900, then you know that this right here is a 5th generation chip, and this is a 10th generation chip. This is also a 10th generation chip. So now that you know the differences with these numbers and what chips they are, you can actually shop with more confidence, knowing that if someone is trying to sell you a processor that is used, that has the numbers, let's say Ryzen 3 1600, then you know that's a 1st generation chip, and they're selling it for $212. You're like, wait a minute, you're selling a 1st generation chip for $200. Why would I do that when I can get a Ryzen 5 brand new 2nd generation chip for $212? So be careful when you're out there looking for these processors. Now that you know what numbers to look for, you know that if someone says, oh, this is a 5th generation chip or this is a 3rd generation chip, you know that by these numbers, if it says anything different, you know something is amiss, and you probably should steer clear away from that. Also, the numbers that are on the box or in the description sometimes will appear on the chip itself. Now this is just a picture of this particular AMD Ryzen, but if you actually got the Ryzen chip in your hand, if you had a magnifying glass app on your phone, you can actually see the writing. There's actual writing that is on these chips. Every chip, whether it's Intel or AMD, there's writing on here that shows you those exact same numbers. So if you were to look at this chip with your eye or out of the box, it would have this number written right on the chip, and then you would know, even if you don't have the box, you will know this is a 3rd generation Ryzen. And it also says it down here that it's a 3rd generation. But if you don't have the box, then you can look at the chip and see that, hey, this thing says 3600, so now I know that this truly is a 3rd generation Ryzen. And that's pretty much all what I want this video to be about, so you can be mindful of people who will try to rip you off by trying to sell you something that's not true. So please be careful. Make sure you do your research on this, and if you want to keep looking more at these chips to get the gist or the familiarization of how to tell what generation the processor is, then go to Newegg or Amazon and just look at the numbers or the title of the processor and click on it, and you should see what generation the processor is. I think Newegg has probably a better understanding about this, or they do a better job of showing you all the information that you need, even as far as what generation, than Amazon does. But in any case, you can always Google it and see what generation is the Intel Core i7-10700K. If you know the box, or if it doesn't show in the box, if the seller doesn't have the box on their website. So I hope this helps you guys out. You all take care, be safe, and peace out.